So, Kathy, if you can start by reading this middle paragraph on page 5.
Okay. The apartment building was big and circular with an interior courtyard, and the walls inside were good for playing handball. The wall I liked the most was outside the downstairs front apartment. A nice man lived in that apartment, and he was usually home when I bounced my ball against his wall. We became friends, the way an 8-year-old girl can be friends with a grown-up who takes the time to talk to her. He told me he was a writer, and I thought that might be something I'd want to be. I developed a crush on him, and when I came home from school, I would take off my school dress and put on my best pedal pushers and sneakers and take my ball across the street to play. If I heard the click-clack of his typewriter, then I knew that he was home, and I'd slam my ball against his wall. His name was Harry Giddis. In the movie Chinatown, Jack Nicholson's character was named Giddis, J.J. or Jake, and not Harry, but still. Harry was Jack's friend and partner, and that's where Nicholson got the name. The movie came out much later after Harry Giddis became a producer and had moved up to Mulholland Drive. When Harry moved out of the apartment, I stopped playing handball across the street.
Thanks, Kathy. And I asked you to read this passage because I think it does a lot to get at the heart of what your essay is about. It shows not only a lot of the famous people and this wonderful Hollywood vibe that exists in this place, but it also shows you as character in the essay and how it affects you. And your real personal interaction with this man who then later goes on and moves to bigger and grander things, as a lot of these people do, while you remain in Laurel Canyon. And there was also just a great use of detail and narrative voice in these really concrete images of the ball against the wall, and also sounds and the click-clack of the typewriter, which really made it come to life.
You know, I also like this passage, and I think most of all, its positioning in this story, but how we get to the heart of the story. I agree with Erin that this is probably the heart of your story, you growing up in this area and what it means to you. But I like how you take until page 5 to get to it, and until then, you just do such a great job structurally of just introducing us to this area, to Honey Drive, dropping all sorts of names, and introducing us to the neighborhoods and streets and just little communities of people around the area before you actually focus in on Honey Drive and you here. And I think it just kind of builds suspense very successfully, and we're just constantly waiting for this kind of heart of the story to emerge, but not impatiently. I think it just comes at the right time. So I think that's a really good job.
Yeah, absolutely, because one of the great strengths is the use of place as a character, which can be really hard to do, but I think through these specifics, and like what Jacob was talking about, especially with early on setting up a lot of the great names that readers can recognize and relate to, which makes it appeal to all of us and kind of suck us right into the essay. And I think that helps create it as a character. Another great place where this happened was on page 4 in the middle paragraph, where you say that Honey Drive was a part of the canyon and it had its own tales to tell. So not only is this place in Hollywood specific and lively, but also Honey Drive as its own place within the place. And that, you know, you then go on to say they were stories that held my place as a Laurel Canyon kid. So again, bringing it back to yourself and you as character.
And you know, just coming back to the scene that you read on page 5, I would even like to know a little bit more about what Honey Drive meant to you, and I guess what was special about it. The paragraph before the paragraph that you just read, you say that I learned that one true story, you learned the true story about Robert Mitchum getting arrested here. And you learned that it actually didn't happen on Honey Drive, and I guess I was wondering if you were disappointed about that. If you wanted Honey Drive to be like cooler than it actually was, or what you expected, I guess what you expected, what made Honey Drive important to you? Was it people like this, like Robert Mitchum getting in trouble? Was it the celebrities? Or was it playing handball against the wall? Or was it later on where you meet Mr. DeWinter? Was it the actual people? Or was it just the celebrities? And is that what, I guess, Los Angelinos usually, is that the way that they usually gauge how cool and important their neighborhoods are is by the amount of celebrities in there. And is this story maybe some sort of realization about that that's not necessarily the case, or should not be the case? And I think if you may kind of dip down and expand this part here, that we might begin to see some of that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. There's a lot in that passage you pointed to about Robert Mitchum with this idea of memory over truth, right? And which becomes more true for you as a character. And this part at the end about Mr. De Winter, I think that we could really continue to open up there, like you were saying, Jacob, and dip more in. He takes up so much space and so many pages at the end of this story. You know, what is it, and how much do you know? How much do your parents know, and they're maybe not telling you about what's going on with this man who's kind of the last sort of cowboy on this frontier, right? He's sort of holding off the wilderness and the development, and then as soon as he leaves, Hollywood comes in and they turn it into this, you know, false Greek kind of structure. And that could either be seen, I think, as a real, you know, he held out as long as he could and then he left, or maybe a betrayal. And, you know, he did sell out for the money when the time was right. And so maybe we just don't know enough yet to know how to read that and read your reactions to that.
Although I do think that if Mr. De Winter does become kind of the essence of Honey Drive, it would make so much sense because of his gift of honey at the very end on the doorstep, you know? It seems to, what was it, the last line is, but today when I go back to LA to visit and drive through the canyon, I'm reminded that it was because of the man who lived hidden at the top and kept honeybees. And so I just think it probably feel more natural, make more sense that Mr. De Winter and people like him are what made Honey Drive special to you.
Absolutely, and I don't know if you want to go as much as moving that around, but it would even be great to start with that and maybe put a lot of this, you know, the more famous people and all that, filter that in and have start on De Winter, this essence of